George, thank you so much for joining us here at IMpower. Great to have you, and you must be very excited that your area of expertise is now very much front and centre of everything that asset management are looking to improve in.
Well, it's somewhat overwhelming at times. I mean, I've been involved in sustainable investing for 25 years now. We've run our strategy for 17, I think. WHEB has got a 10-year history on its own, and I think until about 5 years ago, we felt like we were shouting in the wind, and suddenly we're trying to find ourselves heard in the chorus because it's become sort of predominant in the conversation. And IMpower and FundForum has been at the forefront of this as well. I remember coming 5 years ago, and there's a couple of panels here and there. Then it was a room, and then it was a day, and now it's kind of pervasive across all the conversations. So,
when something has been pushed to the fore as quickly as that, what do you see happen in terms of what challenges that creates, and what do you see in terms of true adoption?
Yeah, well, I think there is the challenge is, as you suggest, is around authenticity, and the big concern I think is around the risk of greenwashing, and that should lead to a sort of cynicism that things aren't being done in the way that people expect them to be done. You know, when people buy a product that suggests it's going to do something in a certain way, they need to have confidence that that is going to be the case, and they need to have confidence that that whole package is being delivered to them in a way that is authentic.
How do you ensure that, and how do you start to create those transparencies of what's going on in a system that is, globally very difficult to regulate? Yeah. There's different rules in different jurisdictions. How do you begin to face those challenges?
Well, for us it was really, as I say, WHEB has got a history on its own for 10 years. We've been doing this for 17. We previously did it within a large institution where we were just one department amongst many. The whole point about setting up WHEB, and WHEB by design is a sustainable investment boutique. We have a single global equity strategy. Sustainability and positive impact is at the core of what we do in investing, but it's also at the core of what we do as a business. So we're a mission-oriented business. We have a business mission that has sustainability and positive impact at its heart, at the center of how we run the business. We are established as a benefit corporation, a B corporation, which really is the highest global standard of the ESG standards that we apply to ourselves and how we run our own business. So I think it starts there.
There are key attributes for investors to be looking for.
I think there are, and you mentioned transparency in your original question. I think that's a really important starting point. So we think a lot about the transparency with which we operate, the way that and that creates opportunities as well, because it creates new avenues to build relationships with our consumers, with our customers. We think about the alignment, the way we design to be aligned with our investors and aligned with our customers. And we think about the governance that we have of our products. So we have an external investment advisory committee, for example, staffed by experts in the field who are independent of us. They come in and 3 times a year and they challenge us on how every stock in our portfolio, every investment we make, stacks up against the criteria and the philosophy, not just the letter of the law, if you like, but the spirit of what we're trying to do, and really gets to the heart of the dynamic of solving global challenges. And we then publish the minutes of that meeting. So we have an external set of governance, we have an external challenge on our investment process, on our holdings, and they're very transparent about that. And that creates a great dynamic of both being open and transparent, but also having governance and alignment with the client base as well.
So setting yourself a high bar by the sound of it. Just sort of looking at where other companies are sitting on this, according to PwC's 25th annual CEO survey, just over 34% of UK CEOs have made a public net zero commitment, and 22% globally. Those figures aren't what you'd like to see, or I'd like to see. Why do you think the majority of CEOs haven't and aren't willing to sort of make that public commitment at the moment?
Well, I think you have to see it a bit in perspective, because we have to think about where we've come from, and we think about our own portfolio, even our own portfolio, which is companies that are solving global challenges, solving sustainability challenges. In 2019, only 2.5 years ago, on our own portfolio, on their own operations, we only had 2% of the portfolio who had their own net zero carbon targets. That's now 45%. So in 2.5 years, 3 years, that's really changed very dramatically. So we've seen a big move and a big adoption around the concept of net zero very quickly. But what's missing is that a lot of people haven't really thought very hard or hard enough about what that actually means in practice, because it's really complex to define that. And you can have very straightforward metrics, but they can become very misleading because they're targeting the wrong outcome. And so, even from our perspective, it's caused us a lot of thought, we're evolving our methodologies year on year to how we best measure it, how we best target, what we're trying to achieve, what the outcome should be. But I think the point about momentum is really important. As I say, our targets internally, and we set targets that were well ahead, we set targets on our own business. At the Madrid COP, at COP25 in Madrid in 2019, we were one of a group of B corporations that were the first to set those net zero carbon targets on our own business. And that was done in a way that created a race to the top. And that was really exciting, and that's what we need to create in the wider environment as well. People really competing to move forward faster and set bars that then can be beaten and then set a higher bar. So we set our original target to have 50% of our portfolio at having a net zero carbon target by 2025. 2 years ago that was ambitious. We're at 45% now. We're going to be at 50% I think this year. So we really need to change that 2025 target and make it higher. We've got 2030 targets, and obviously we've got 2050 targets as well. But we need to be ambitious, and we need to be dynamic, and we need to be moving the bar higher all the time, and doing it so in such a way that we create that momentum across the wider community as well, and create that race to the top.
So huge momentum, and what you talked about there was kind of the buzz phrase of net zero. What does it really mean in terms of true commitment across the board in a company? In order to bring those changes about, you need the leaders who are passionate, and you sound very passionate. You're one of those leaders. What do you need in those leaders, and what attributes do you need to see in them to be really leading these companies in this charge?
Well, I think in the fund management industry, and leadership is the key, is the really important. I've operated, as I say, within a larger, broader fund management business, and when you're trying to do it from the grassroots up, you're trying to fight for your space, then that's hard work. And you need the leadership from the top, from the apex of these organizations, to permission through. And I think that's why setting targets for ourselves is really powerful, because that then gets into the psyche, the culture of the whole organization as to how we think and we try and address these challenges. The key attribute, I think, is having the vision and the space to think longer term, to think beyond quarterly results and the quarterly pressures of how do I deliver this quarter's numbers, to think what are we trying to achieve on that longer term framework, and keep that objective at front of center. And that's why having a mission, having a purpose, having that stakeholder orientation built into the core of your business, and B Corp, as I mentioned, is a special thing, because although it's a framework for how we think about how we run our own business, it also requires you to write into your articles of association how you are looking to have a positive impact through benefiting all stakeholders in the business, and that way you will create a more valuable business, but it creates a longer term framework to do that. Now, not every business is going to be able to do that, but that's why I think the conversations around purpose and intentionality around the investment industry are really important.
George, it's so great to hear your purpose. You're obviously extremely passionate about it, and it's really great to hear your insights. So thank you so much for joining us at IMpower.
Thank you. Thanks very much.